Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to Miss Floatie's Imaginarium. Today, we're going to go on an adventure and we're going to read a story called The Frog Prince. Once we're finished reading our story, we're going to jump in and we're going to do a fun activity. Are you guys ready? The Frog Prince, written by Ulf Stark and Silk Leffer. Princess Clara was bored. "I've got nothing to do," she moaned. "Read a story," suggested the queen. "Sort your stamp collection out," said the king. "No, I want somebody to play with. Somebody my own age," said the princess. "Well, you're a very lucky girl then," laughed the king. "Prince Carl is coming on Thursday. His mummy and daddy are going away." On Thursday it was raining. That was a good thing because Clara and Carl could jump in puddles. They could climb the pear tree in the castle gardens and each eat a lovely juicy pear. "I'm glad you came," said Clara. "So am I," said Carl. "At home I'm hardly allowed to do anything. Mummy and Daddy worry all the time. They think something terrible will happen to me if I get too happy." "Why would they think that?" "Because a fairy said so when I was little," Carl answered. "When I was born, my daddy invited the fairies of the forest to a party. The first fairy gave me my singing voice. The second one made me able to wiggle my ears. But when the third fairy was about to leave her gift, Daddy laughed and whispered, 'Oh no, that one looks like a right frog.' She wasn't supposed to hear it, but unfortunately she did." "Was she upset?" "Of course. She got really angry and said we had better watch out, for just when we are at our happiest, misfortune will strike." "Oh, that's horrible." "Nah, it's just one of those little things people say when they're angry. As you can see, nothing has happened." "Let's play something else," said Carl. Princess Clara and Prince Carl played every day. They played bowling with the king's golden apple. They made funny faces in the castle mirrors and swung from the big crystal chandeliers. They got too hot. The prince simply flapped his ears to fan them out. They laughed ever such a lot. But then the king came along and put his finger to his lip. "Calm down a bit," he said. "Carl's mummy and daddy said that you can have fun, but not too much fun. And what you're doing definitely sounds like too much fun to me." "Let's go outside instead," said Clara. "Good idea," said the queen. "You can go for a nice, quiet walk." But Carl and Clara did not go for a walk. They laid down in the grass and looked at the clouds instead. "What's the point of living if you can't play?" asked Clara. "What's the point of playing if you can't have fun?" said Carl. "Do you want to hear a song?" Clara certainly did, because no one could sing like Carl. When he sang, all the animals of the forest stopped and listened. The squirrel wiped away a tear with its tail. The owl tilted its head to one side, and the rabbit wiggled its ears in time with the rhythm. Everybody was happy, and nobody noticed the black cloud creeping up on them in the sky. "Aha, Prince Carl, so this is where you are," sighed the cloud. "And you certainly look very happy. Remember what I said, misfortune will soon be with you." But the children didn't hear that. The next day, Clara and Carl were playing hide and seek. "Your turn to seek," shouted Carl, and he ran off while Clara closed her eyes and counted to 100. "To-woo, to-woo," hooted the owl as Carl rushed by. "Be careful. Remember, this is the fairy tale forest." But the prince's mind was on other things. He got down and hid behind a mossy rock. What a good hiding place, he thought. He sat there giggling, imagining how long it would take Clara to find him. And when she finally did find him behind the rock, she would shout, "Oh, there you are!" And they would dance around with happiness because they were together again. "I don't think I could ever be happier than I am right now," the Prince Carl said to himself. But just as he was saying those words, the dark cloud came down into the forest and wrapped him up in a big, damp fog. "Aha! came a husky murmuring laugh. Clara, the prince tried to shout, but all that came out was a whack. Clara looked for the prince all day. This isn't fun at all, she shouted. Come out now. But Prince Carl was gone, and even though the king sent out his best scouts and his best tracking dogs, they could not find a single trace of the missing prince. Oh, such a misfortune! What will his parents say? You weren't having too much fun, were you? Groaned the king. Yes, we were, said Clara, but you have to be able to have fun. And she disappeared off to her room and cried because she was angry and missed her friend. After a while, she felt a warm little nose on her neck. It was a mouse with a red woolly hat. Don't cry, said the mouse. We'll go and find your friend. I have been in lots of fairy tales, so I will help you, as long as I can have a piece of cheese. The next day, Clara and the mouse set off into the fairy tale forest. The first person they met was a little girl with a Red Riding Hood. Hello, said the mouse. Are you off to your grandmother's house with some biscuits? Yes, I am, said the girl, and I'm in a bit of a hurry because I have to meet a wolf on the way. Is there something I can help you with? I'm looking for Prince Carl, said Clara. Have you seen him or heard him? He has a very lovely singing voice. Singing voice, you say? I think you should ask the musicians. Before the little girl rushed off, she gave Clara a biscuit from her basket. This biscuit is called a dream, said the little girl. I hope it will be a nice one. The musicians lived in a house made of sweets and biscuits. When the mouse and the princess came along, they were busy playing. The donkey was braying, the cat was meowing, the dog was barking, and the cockerel was crowing his heart out. Do you call that music? Asked the princess, once they had stopped. Well, smiled the donkey, we know it sounds terrible, but it is fun, and fun is, after all, what's most important. What can we do for you? We are looking for Prince Carl. I cannot be happy without him, replied Clara. Can it be true? Crowed the cockerel. Woof, woof, would you believe it? She has done it again, said the dog. What? Who? Wondered the princess. The wicked fairy, meowed the cat. The wicked fairy, meowed the cat. Just yesterday she was flying over our house in the shape of a cloud. She told us to stop playing, otherwise she'd turn us into something else, just like she had done with a certain giggling prince. So it is her, said the mouse. Where is she? I haven't a clue, said the donkey, but ask the hare and the hedgehog. They are sure to know. The way they run around, you can ride on me if you'd like. The hare and the hedgehog were resting amongst the oak trees. They had been racing. What can we do for you? Asked the hare. Would you like to have a race? No, said Clara. We're looking for the wicked fairy. Do you know where she lives? When I was out running, I heard someone snoring in the cave by the pond, and no one snores quite as horribly as the wicked fairy. It must have been her. But how will you ever be so brave enough to go there? Asked the hedgehog. She can turn you into anything she likes. Maybe while she's sleeping, said the hare. She usually takes a nap around this time. I'll run over and take a look. And quick as a flash, he was off. The wicked fairy talks in her sleep when she dreams, said the hedgehog. Go and listen, and you might hear something interesting. She's sleeping like a log, puffed the hare, who was already back. Clara and the mouse rode on the donkey. As they got nearer, he was not brave enough to go any further, but Clara and the mouse were. Now they stood inside the deep cave and looked at the wicked fairy who was sleeping deeply. Gosh, she looks really scary, whispered the princess. She certainly does. And she is not saying anything either, squeaked the mouse. She is just snoring. So Clara took out the biscuit the little girl with the Red Riding Hood had given her. Maybe this will help. It is called a dream, after all. Carefully, the princess pushed the biscuit into the sleeping fairy's mouth. Whew, was the sound from the fairy as she breathed the dream in, and straight away she started dreaming. Ha ha ha! That silly prince will have to catch flies with his tongue for the rest of his life. He is a frog now, and a frog he will stay. The fairy chuckled, very pleased with herself. At that, Clara got so angry she tweaked the fairy's nose as hard as she could. You rotten, wicked fairy, you! The princess shouted. Make Carl into a boy again. The wicked fairy suddenly opened her yellow eyes. Never, she sneered. The only thing that can break the spell is if somebody recognizes him. But how could that possibly ever happen? There are thousands of frogs, and you are only allowed one try. The moon was shining over the lily pond. This is where the frogs gathered every evening, eating flies and mosquitoes and croaking as frogs do. So where is your little friend then? Teased the fairy. Clara looked at many different frogs, and they all looked the same. She stopped at one who was smiling and staring at her with big, friendly eyes. Is that... she began. She was just about to say Carl when she heard a croak that sounded different to all the others. It was such a beautiful croak that it made Clara's heart jump, just like a little frog inside her. There on a stone a little way off, a frog sat singing so beautifully that the dragonflies were still and the mosquitoes stopped buzzing. The princess rushed up to the frog, bent down, and gave it a kiss. Carl, she cried out happily. And all of a sudden, the wicked fairy turned into a cloud that blew away, and the frog turned into Carl. He lifted her up and danced around and said, Thank you, Clara. Now, at least we can play as much as we would like. And the mouse threw its hat in the air and shouted, Hooray! And from that day on, Clara and Carl lived as happily as they wanted to forever after. And when they got hot, the prince flapped his ears to fan them, and when they got tired of playing, he sang just as beautifully as always. And every now and then, he gave a little croak. And they just giggled about that. The end. Hi everybody, I really hope you guys enjoyed the Frog Prince reading. Now that we have finished reading our story, I would like us to jump in and we'll do our activity. So Miss Floatie has picked out an activity based off of this story, The Frog Prince, and we're going to make our own frogs. But today, we're going to do it a little bit different. Today, we are going to trace our hands. We're going to cut out our traced hands, and we're going to create a frog that way. Are you guys ready? Let's start. Awesome. What I would like you guys to do is I want all of you guys to go ahead and grab your material. On the screen, you guys will see Miss Floatie's material list. You are going to need some white paper, some black paper, some green paper for our frog. You're going to need some glue, and of course, you're going to need some scissors. So let's go ahead and start, and let's start by tracing our hands. Perfect. Now that you guys have your hands traced, our next step of the activity is going to be cutting them out. So why don't you go ahead and cut your hands out? Perfect. Now we've got our two hands cut out for our frog. All right, now that we have our two hands cut out, we're going to grab one more piece of green paper, just like this, and we are going to make a circle all the way around. You can make it big, you can make it small. I will leave the size of your frog up to you. So, now that we have drawn our circle, let's go ahead and cut it out. Perfect. So Miss Floatie has her circle. We have our two hands here. The next step for us is we are going to make the eyes. Now, to make the eyes, I want everybody to find your white piece of paper and some black construction paper. Our black construction paper and our white paper is in front of Miss Floatie here. Now, for the eyes, we are going to take our white paper and we're going to draw 2 small circles. Are we ready? Now that we have these 2 circles, let's go ahead and cut them out. Our 2 white circles. Now, when we look at a frog's eyeball, they've got 2 more circles in the middle. So let's go ahead and we're going to draw even smaller circles. Can you guys try and cut those out? Perfect. Now we have our 2 eyes, we have our circle, and we have our 2 hands. Our first step is to take our circle and we are going to fold it in half. Fold it in half like this, kind of like a taco. This is going to be our mouth of our frog. Now, our next step is to take the 2 hands and we are going to glue them together just like this. So why don't we go ahead and we glue those together? Perfect. Now that we have the 2 hands and the mouth laid out of our frog, let's go ahead and we're going to create our eyes. Now, our eyes consisted of, we have 2 white and 2 black. Let's go ahead and start, and we're going to put the black on top of the white. Why don't you guys go ahead and get your glue and let's start. Perfect. Now that we have everything all glued together, our last and final step is to put the eyes on our frog. So let's go ahead and glue our eyes onto our frog. And there we have it. It is our frog. Now you may or may not, up to you, if you would like to add a tongue or a nose or a smiley face to your frog. I'm going to leave that to you and your imagination. All right, boys and girls, I hope you guys enjoyed watching Miss Floatie create and make a frog from the frog prints. Here is our final product. Well, boys and girls, that is the end of our activity today. Thank you so much for listening and watching Miss Floatie's adventure. I had lots of fun reading the frog prints and creating our frog. Remember what Miss Floatie said, if you wanted to add more to your frog, please do. It's all about your imagination. If you would like to join me on our next adventure, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.